This is one of President Trump's biggest priorities, a successful narco-trafficking campaign against America. And a big piece of that is fentanyl.
The Coast Guard announced the largest cocaine seizure in its history, the results of which is what you're seeing here on these pallets. Nearly 50,000 pounds of cocaine worth more than $360 million.
A cartel used our checkpoint, our roads, our uniforms. Tonight, we take Arizona back. 4:26 a.m., November 25th, 2025. FBI and DHS agents converge on Arizona's southern corridor. Lukeville border facility. Operation Desert Ring begins. A classified audit is about to erupt into Arizona's largest border security scandal in U.S. history. A covert gate pumping Sinaloa and CJNG poison straight into American communities.
Now to our border coverage, and the amount of fentanyl pouring across the southern border staying on pace for a record high.
And at the center of it all, not a tunnel, but a federal outpost. Tonight, they uncover the breach. One man turned America's southern shield into the cartel's front door. Federal agents have exposed a massive cartel breach inside Arizona's Lukeville border checkpoint, commanded by the station director himself. 4:26 a.m., November 25th, 2025, Lukeville, Arizona. Before sunrise, FBI and DHS teams swept into the operations unit, heading directly for the office of 52-year-old border director Carlos Mesa. What they discovered removed every doubt. Mesa wasn't guarding the border, he was escorting the enemy through it. On his desk sat 3 encrypted hard drives packed with routing codes, badge overrides, and checkpoint blind zones. Hidden beneath a floor panel, $68.2 million in sealed cash bricks. In his file cabinet, 42 active security passes issued to identities with no DHS employment records. Dozens of them traced directly to CJNG and Sinaloa cells. This wasn't bribery. This was internal betrayal, a federal stronghold hijacked, and Carlos Mesa was its architect. If you want to see the agents expose the full depth of this treason, comment expose and smash that like button now. President Trump gave one order: protect America. And these agents answered that call.
I think we're just going to kill people that are bringing drugs into our country. Okay? We're going to kill them. You know, they're going to be like dead.
As the investigation widened beyond Mesa's office, the truth grew darker. He hadn't just helped the cartels. He built a covert trafficking empire from inside U.S. soil. A federal audit revealed he'd cleared 49 midnight commercial vehicles through the checkpoint, each bearing false manifests, spoofed transponder signals, and cargo links to cartel storage hubs in Sonoita, Mexico. Worse, Mesa embedded 21 cartel-linked personnel into checkpoint operations. Many used stolen identities or falsified documents. They ran clearance booths, monitored cameras, and handled inspection lanes. From Lukeville to Phoenix, Tucson, Mesa, and Flagstaff, a smuggling pipeline moved freely through America. 5.1 tons of narcotics, $168 million laundered, and it all started here, at a checkpoint that forgot who it served. Federal tracing later confirmed the routes funneled through Lukeville carried 2.7 tons of methamphetamine, 1.9 tons of black tar heroin, and roughly 450,000 fentanyl pills, each one a bullet aimed at an American family. More than $168 million was laundered through fraudulent security contractor invoices and phony inspection service accounts tied to shell companies in Phoenix, Tucson, and Nogales. But Carlos Mesa didn't act alone. His 20-year-old nephew, Luis Mesa, wasn't a bystander. Records show Carlos personally placed him on a restricted cargo verification unit, giving him full access to bays, manifests, and cargo staging reports. Surveillance footage later revealed Luis coordinating night truck releases, disabling inspection cams, and relaying movement commands to Sinaloa drivers over encrypted radios. A junior operator, trained, protected, and shaped directly by his uncle. The operation moved so seamlessly that cartel operatives began referring to Lukeville as La Puerta del Sur, the Southern Gate. And standing at the center of that gate was one man, Carlos Mesa, the director who turned Arizona's checkpoint into a cartel command post. If you want to see how federal agents strike back against a cartel network buried inside our border system, comment ready and hit that like button now. By the time federal analysts finished mapping the full reach of Carlos Mesa's cartel-fueled network, one conclusion was impossible to ignore: Arizona was breached.
We'll not rest until we have ended the drug overdose epidemic.
And the infiltration stretched from the checkpoint gates of Lukeville to storage yards, rail hubs, and fake inspection depots across the state. Inside a secured DHS field command in Tucson, Senior officials stood shoulder to shoulder beneath a wall of glowing screens. Satellite feeds, drone relays, transponder data, convoy paths. The air was heavy, tense, seconds before the strike. Then, acting DHS Regional Director Angela Cortez stepped forward. Her voice was steady, sharp, decisive. This isn't a raid, it's a counter-infiltration strike. A cartel hijacked our checkpoint, our contractors, our trust. Tonight we take back Arizona, and we do it fast. The mission had a name, Operation Desert Ring. Its scope shattered precedent. 2:14 a.m. The order went live. Within seconds, 860 agents surged from staging zones in Tucson, Yuma, Flagstaff, and Phoenix. Blacked-out SUVs sliced through desert highways. DHS armored units fanned out toward identified cartel-controlled sites. FBI hostage rescue teams staged for high-resistance targets. Helicopters thundered out of Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, blades screaming into the night. The first breach exploded in Tucson's East Commerce Zone. A warehouse disguised as a pesticide importer turned into a battlefield. Breaching charges cracked steel. Flashbangs lit the halls like lightning. Cartel enforcers opened fire from behind pallets stacked with fertilizer. But the agents moved like a wave. Shields up, rifles steady, commands sharp in English and Spanish. Within minutes, the shooting stopped, and only the sound of handcuffs remained. In Mesa, a secondary breach met fiercer resistance. A Sinaloa-linked cell had fortified a warehouse once registered as an agricultural distributor. Welding shut the exits, reinforcing windows with rebar and wiring entry points with crude traps. As federal agents approached, cartel spotters launched commercial drones fitted with Wi-Fi disruptors, jamming comms for nearly 6 minutes. FBI cyber teams deployed mobile signal jammers of their own, slicing through interference like a knife. The counter window was narrow, but it was enough. DHS armored trucks punched through the southern bay. Inside, agents uncovered duffel bags of raw methamphetamine, fentanyl bricks double-wrapped in thermal plastic, and sealed drums marked as petroleum grease. The cargo matched exactly what had passed unchecked through Mesa's checkpoint days earlier. But the most violent exchange unfolded on Interstate 8 near Gila Bend. There, a convoy of 3 unmarked box trucks linked to the checkpoint operation attempted to flee. Border Patrol air assets locked on. Helicopters swept in from above as state troopers formed a blockade at mile marker 102. One truck veered off-road, crashing into a ravine. The driver burst from the cab, reaching under his jacket. Federal agents reacted instantly. He was tackled mid-step, weapons seized, pinned under boots and rifle barrels. The other 2 drivers dropped to their knees, hands trembling in the red and blue strobe of justice. By 6:12 a.m., the operation had struck 27 cartel-affiliated targets across Arizona. 71 Sinaloa operatives detained. 12 corrupt contractors and checkpoint staff were arrested. Carlos Mesa's nephew Luis, found inside a Phoenix warehouse, caught trying to destroy encrypted drives linked to cargo pass schedules. Arizona didn't just endure a cartel raid, it survived a full-scale war, launched in the darkness, led by a traitor at the border gate. And this was just the beginning. If the sounds of helicopters and breach charges echo in your mind, hit like so the algorithm knows we're not looking away. But once the shooting stopped, once Arizona's cities returned to silence, the real war began. Not on dirt roads or in warehouses, but deep inside the FBI's cyber forensics unit in downtown Phoenix. Every device seized in Operation Desert Ring, drives, phones, ledgers, RFID scanners, encrypted tablets, were laid out like war trophies from the digital underworld. Agents had seen networks before, but this wasn't chaos. It was structured, strategy, a blueprint, the type of logistical precision seen in elite foreign intelligence, not smuggling rings. And it was embedded inside our border system, waiting, growing, operating in plain sight. The first breakthrough came from a rugged encrypted drive buried inside a tampered junction box at the Nogales checkpoint's main entry hub. It was tucked beneath thermal insulation, wired to avoid detection. But once cracked, it unleashed a storm. Inside were 7 routing maps, color-coded in red, black, and green. Each line traced the flow of Sinaloa and CJNG narcotics from Arizona's southern border, through Phoenix, up to rail depots in Utah, New Mexico, and all the way to Chicago, Denver, and Kansas City. This wasn't local.
The cartels are waging war on America, and it's time for America to wage war on the cartels, which we are doing.
Arizona had become a logistical backbone, a continental launchpad for cartel distribution across the American interior. The maps weren't alone. Agents uncovered payment ledgers disguised as export clearance slips, stamped and notarized by shell companies linked to agricultural shipments and sanitation vendors. Each fake invoice, once decrypted, corresponded to a cartel payload. In total, $168 million in laundered capital, 5.1 tons of narcotics, including over 2.7 tons of methamphetamine, 1.9 tons of black tar heroin, and nearly 450,000 fentanyl pills tracked across 4 states. The operation was surgically precise, but the betrayal ran deeper. A file labeled Alto, high access. Local target operatives revealed the full extent of the checkpoint's compromise. It contained profiles of 53 federal employees and private contractors, each with photos, job roles, clearance tiers, and payment histories. Customs inspectors, radio tower engineers, freight coordinators, and even 2 senior supervisory agents with clearance to override search protocols. Some were bribed, some were blackmailed. Some had family tied to prior trafficking charges. They weren't infiltrated, they were activated. Adjacent to the Alto folder sat a string of encrypted messages between a Sinaloa commander, known only as Cuervo, and a logistics liaison using the codename AZ Crown. Authorities now believe AZ Crown was a field director inside DHS, still unnamed to the public. In those logs, Cuervo sends instructions, rerouting orders, threat assessments, payoffs. AZ Crown responds with updates, numbers, dates, even vehicle plate registrations of Border Patrol units on shift. This wasn't infiltration. It was a coordinated occupation. But the most damning evidence came from a seizure at a military satellite relay station near Yuma. A mirrored server, taken from a cartel safe house, contained surveillance footage of Arizona National Guard patrols, synced with cartel transit schedules. Someone was feeding the cartel live troop positioning, and it wasn't from the outside. That was the final straw. By 2:46 p.m., the Pentagon invoked its new emergency protocol. For the first time since the reclassification of Sinaloa and CJNG as foreign terrorist organizations, U.S. Northern Command was authorized to assist directly in counter-cartel strikes on domestic soil. The battlefield shifted instantly. Military analysts joined DEA cyber teams. SIGINT units deployed to intercept encrypted comms. Black Hawk helicopters were rerouted from border surveillance to live combat prep. Operation Desert Fortress was born. The mission wasn't just about arrests anymore. It was about containment, intelligence extraction, and total network obliteration. Because this wasn't a cartel slipping through cracks. This was a criminal insurgency, fed by a broken system, hiding in plain sight behind uniforms and gates. By sunset, Arizona had become the front line. A new kind of war was underway. A war not just against drugs, but against the betrayal rotting our border from the inside out. If you're still watching, you already understand how deep this goes. Hit subscribe if you want part 2. Hit like if you believe we must defend this country, not just from the outside, but from within. The takedown numbers told a story Washington wasn't ready to hear. 147 arrests across Arizona, 93 confirmed Sinaloa and CJNG operatives, 12 corrupted federal and local officials, including CBP supervisors, logistics contractors, and county procurement officers. 5.1 tons of narcotics seized, primarily methamphetamine, heroin, and fentanyl. $168 million in assets frozen across Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and Southern California. But this was more than a drug bust. It was a system collapse, and it happened on American soil. As agents briefed Homeland Security and Northern Command, one truth became inescapable. Arizona had become the prototype, a cartel-controlled border artery disguised as federal infrastructure, masked by the very agencies meant to defend it.
Authorities in Arizona showing off the results of a multi-agency drug bust today, and this was a big one.
Yeah, from illegal fentanyl and meth to cash and guns.
Documents seized during Operation Desert Fortress showed plans for replication. The cartels were mapping out future corridors in Nevada, Colorado, and even up through Idaho, identifying weak checkpoints, underfunded regions, and corruptible leadership. Arizona wasn't the end goal. It was the blueprint. Now that the Arizona corridor had been exposed and collapsed, the Department of Homeland Security moved fast. A national emergency directive was issued before dawn, triggering the most aggressive internal review of border agents since post-9/11. CBP checkpoints were placed under forensic audit. All movement logs, radio dispatches, and encrypted communication hubs were seized for analysis. Meanwhile, military cyber units joined DEA analysts, building a digital map of every insider and external network tied to the breach. The fallout hit every level. At the center of the conspiracy was a senior CBP logistics coordinator, name withheld by federal authorities. She now faces charges of conspiracy with a foreign terrorist organization, interstate narcotics trafficking, public corruption, security tampering, and espionage-level offenses. Her two sons, ages 21 and 24, were also indicted. They worked the night shift on drone surveillance teams, but instead of guarding America's skies, they rerouted patrol drones away from cartel convoys. Federal prosecutors were blunt. This wasn't a failure, this was betrayal. As news broke across Arizona, fury ignited. Local sheriffs demanded to know how an entire smuggling operation had thrived under DHS oversight. Border town mayors called emergency press conferences. "How many of our kids died from the poison they let through?" one mother shouted, and nobody had an answer. In Tucson, crowds gathered outside the federal courthouse. Many waved flags. Some held signs that read, "Secure our borders, clean our house." But behind the scenes, a darker realization took root. Forensic analysts reviewing cartel communications found a chilling pattern. The Arizona breach wasn't viewed as an operation. It was called a model corridor, a perfect test run for embedding cartel logistics into U.S. government systems. And the cartel's tone? They didn't view their partners as pawns. They treated them like architects. That's the real terror. Because if one compromised checkpoint can become a $168 million narcotics gateway, how many more are already in motion? How many more trusted employees are routing poison into American cities as we speak? Operation Desert Fortress ended with arrests, seizures, and tactical wins. But its legacy is a warning. The enemy is not just climbing over the wall, they're already inside, and they're using our systems, our uniforms, and our silence against us. If you believe this battle must continue, if you believe we must expose every last traitor who opened our gates to the cartels, hit like, hit subscribe, and comment, defend.